Hello and welcome to the Saltcast. Just lost Danny there. That's all right. Paul and I got this covered. Welcome, Paul. Glad to have you on with me today.
Thanks, Ryan. Glad to be here.
I think we've got a pretty good topic to discuss today. And kind of just to introduce the topic a little bit, I kind of wanted to chat with you about, refund recovery projects, or maybe you've heard it called sales tax recovery project. And I know there's a few different things that it's called, but kind of, go through what it is, who is really, a good candidate for, recovery project, and why.
Yeah.
Kind of those three
let's
things.
first chat about what the heck is a reverse audit, or what is a refund review, or audit recovery, or refund recovery. I mean, people call them a wide range of things, but essentially it's the same thing, more or less. Is you're reviewing transactions, specifically purchases and even fixed asset acquisitions, for tax that was paid that shouldn't have been paid. When we talk about refund recovery work with our existing clients and new clients, we talk to them specifically about where you're paying tax, what you're paying tax on, and why you're paying tax on those certain things. You also may not be paying tax on certain things, but self-assessing and remitting use tax on those transactions, on those purchases. You may have a direct pay permit, and so you're not paying tax on any purchases, and so through a direct pay permit, you're remitting tax directly to the state based on those specific transactions, or based on those specific purchases to the state that are subject to tax. So considering doing a refund review is very wise, especially this past year, as things have been a lot tighter for a lot of companies. Finding ways to save money or even get money back that wasn't due has been a hot item for us, and we've been helping a number of clients do this across the board in the sales and use tax world. Currently, with our existing client base, all of our clients on our subscription model who pay for our monthly subscription, it's included in that subscription to do this refund review. And what we do in that instance is we go through fixed asset acquisitions, like indicated. We go through purchases, literally all your purchases, and take a look at what you're purchasing, what you're buying, if tax is due on those items, if tax is not due on those items. And by definition, when you purchase, TPP, you're subject to tax. You got to pay tax on that. And when you purchase services, tax is not due unless they're specifically enumerated in legislation. So software companies, or even, you don't even have to be a software company, but if you're purchasing software and you're using it in a certain manner, you may be subject to an exemption. So there are a lot of exemptions that companies are unaware about and may be subject to. So just because you're paying tax doesn't mean you have to. And getting a sales tax expert on the line, somebody who knows the legislation or can do some research on the legislation to help provide some comfort and peace of mind in knowing, hey, yeah, I'm paying tax on this and it's right, or no, I shouldn't be paying tax on this. How do I get it back? Is a hot topic for certain.
So basically what it is you're basically trying to get a refund from the state you paid tax to on things that you shouldn't really have paid tax on. It could be a product, service. Yep. I know that we work a lot with like manufacturers that may be reselling items, or they're not selling to the final customer. Or maybe it's something that's used in a manufacturing process.
Right. In most cases, you're going to be paying tax to vendors, to companies who are selling you something, whether it be a good or a service, or cloud services are a big one now as they're getting more traction. Software, anything you purchase, more than likely is going to be subject to tax. With there's some exceptions, obviously, and so having an understanding of, is there a way that I can avoid having to pay this tax, is very, very, very wise. And obviously, sales tax can be a margin killer. It's another topic that we talk about quite a bit, and so reviewing what you're paying tax on is wise, very wise.
So when people get on, what's next call, talking about, their sales tax situation, and you bring up, a sales tax recovery project, like, what is their reaction?
Mm-hmm.
Like, do people are like, what is that? Or maybe they have some idea of what it is. What's the reaction that you see most often?
Yeah, a lot of people aren't even aware of it. Like, what is that? Like, it's a discussion for us because we include it in our agreements, and they, more times than not, say to us, "Hey, why are you going to charge me for this if you do it? Like, shouldn't you be doing it right the first time?" And so people don't understand that it's on the purchase side, on the acquisition side, rather than the sell side to the consumer, to your consumer, to the client's user. And so it's on the other end, on the purchase end. And also, some people call it a reverse audit because it's during a sales tax audit that it's the most wise to review, because it'll help offset your tax liability. And so generally, when the state comes in and audits you on for sales tax on your transactions, they're not going to look at where you pay tax and see and make note of, hey, you shouldn't have paid tax there. That's not the auditor's responsibility.
Right.
And in fact, they are going to do everything to avoid that, because they know that it's going to reduce your audit liability. And so just reviewing on the front end, where you're making those purchases, where you're making those acquisitions, you're building a new store, or you're building a new office, new construction in some instances exempt from tax. And so it just depends on how it's being utilized, but doing a review is super wise.
So now I kind of want to cover the who side. Like, are there specific companies or industries that benefit more or from doing a refund recovery project than others?
Yeah, I think that in general, anybody who's paying tax ought to review it. Specifically, manufacturers are subject to an exemption based on how what they're purchasing and what they're acquiring. Manufacturers and distributors, further distributors, wholesalers, making purchases for resale. Labor is another one where people are paying for labor. Labor may not be taxable, but a lot of people do pay tax on it, and so reviewing that would be wise. And then another one in the telecom world, there's a lot of refunds for telecom companies just based on the exemptions that are available to them. One of the more recent ones that we've been helping over the last few months has been on the software side. People will acquire and purchase software, and based on where the software is being utilized and how it's being utilized, there are exemptions in certain states where it does make sense to request a refund and not pay tax on those software purchases.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think of the people that are in charge of these, the tax collection within these companies. It seems like it would be kind of complicated to keep up, because each state has their own set of legislation. And I can't, if it were me and I was missing and I was paying this tax when I shouldn't be, and it could be in the millions of dollars. We've seen that. That's a big
sure.
deal. And I would kind of be scared to know what my boss would say if he found out. that I had made
Yeah.
this mistake, but maybe you can talk about kind of the complexity of what that entails. And really, it pays to have, a sales tax expert get in there and kind of look, because they can see things that you may miss, or, you could be right
Yeah.
in one state, but not in another. And so it can be
Right.
kind of complicated.
I think it's a big concern. I mean, we work with, obviously controllers, VPs of tax, tax managers, who that's their responsibility, right, is to ensure that they're compliant from a sales tax perspective. And so I think people fear for their own jobs, knowing that, hey, we're going to come in and look for errors that you're making and determining, yeah, I should be paying tax on that, but really you shouldn't. And so people have this legitimate concern that, I don't want to tell my boss that I, paid $100,000 on that invoice that I shouldn't have, or $20,000 in tax that I shouldn't have on that invoice. But I think the opposite, the contrary, is argument can also be made of you being the tax hero. Hey, we've been doing it this way for so long. I've got this group available who can come in and review it and identify areas where we can make improvements, or we can save money. And in turn, you're now the tax hero rather than the bearer of bad
Right.
news, or whatever people's
Right.
concerns may be. And so we help work with those individuals to be the hero and to provide those refund opportunities to companies.
Yeah, I like that much better, because these tax managers or controllers are probably erring on the side of paying the tax, because it would probably be worse not to pay the tax in the long run. But still,
Yeah.
the money and time savings could be pretty significant. So I like the tax hero. You're out there, you're on the company's the company's side. You want to make sure everything's done right.
Right.
So, is there anything else you wanted to cover? I mean,
No,
what
I
else you
think
got?
that if you haven't considered doing a refund review, or reviewing purchases, fixed asset acquisitions, like I indicated, and you haven't done that in the last 3 years, then you ought to be doing it. And it doesn't matter if you're a small company and you've only paid, $10,000 in tax, or you've paid $10 million in tax. It doesn't matter the size of the company. Everybody is entitled and subject to those refunds. Obviously, the smaller refunds that are available, the easier they are to obtain. Taking a credit against future tax returns, reporting the tax, or requesting a credit against a future invoice for current vendors. Obviously there are a number of ways to go about it, but it doesn't have to be complex, doesn't have to be robust, and it doesn't have to take up days and weeks of your time. It is something as simple as allowing a company like ours to come in for a day or two, reviewing all of these purchases and fixed asset acquisitions, doing it on our own time and our own dime. And then if we find something, then we can help you obtain a refund of it back. And then we could also at the same time help train and instruct and teach people what the legislation is and how it pertains to your business and how you're making these acquisitions. So I think in my opinion, it's almost like a great way to get some inside training on operations and businesses. So we would love to do that for any company of any size. Again, with the whole mindset of, that's what we do. We're the sales tax people, and we love to provide peace of mind. So, we did a refund review for a company out in Washington, and the gals who were handling the accounts payable were doing it for 25 and 32 years. Never had a refund review done. So we came in, did a refund review for them. We looked at those purchases and, the GL and everything. And at the end of the day, we only found like 2 or 3 specific instances where they were paying tax. It was very minor. And they were doing a phenomenal job. And so we congratulated them We talked highly of them. We talked highly of them to their direct reports and to the president of the company, and made some minor recommendations. Again, small recommendations, and then we went on our merry way. And so that offered them a lot of peace of mind and comfort in knowing that what they're doing is fantastic, and we were happy to do it. And so again, if you're looking for the peace of mind, you're looking for the comfort, looking for just another set of eyes, don't hesitate to reach out and to chat with us about it.
Yeah, I like that example, Paul. So if you are just concerned about what you're doing is correct, if you're making a lot of purchases, if you're paying a lot of tax, or you're under sales tax audit, it's always smart to come chat with us. And you can find the link to our What's Next call, which is really a consultative discovery call, Jason likes to call it, and we can discuss next steps and what what's going to happen, and it can only help you. So click that link, schedule your time, and we'll be happy to talk to you. All right, well, thanks, Paul, for being on with me today. Great stuff, and
of course,
we'll see you on another one.
Yeah, this is awesome. Chat with you guys later.